Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan Podcast. Today we're going on a deep dive into a concept that might sound a bit jarring at first.
Oh, yeah.
Blood money.
Yeah.
We'll be exploring this fascinating aspect of Islamic jurisprudence as detailed in Sunan al Tirmidhi, Volume 3.
It's one of those topics that often raises eyebrows,
Right.
but it's crucial to approach it with an open mind,
Of course.
a willingness to understand the historical and
Yeah.
cultural
The
context
context.
in which it developed.
So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is blood money in Islamic law?
So in Arabic, it's known as Diyah,
Diyah.
and it's a form of financial compensation
Financial compensation.
paid to the family of a victim
Okay.
in cases of murder or injury.
Murder or injury.
And it's not meant to be seen as a way to just buy someone's life for suffering,
Right.
but rather as a means of achieving justice,
Mm-hmm.
deterring revenge,
Uh-huh.
and encouraging reconciliation
Reconciliation.
within the community.
So it's not about putting a price tag on life,
No.
but more about offering a structured way to address the harm caused.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, and prevent further violence.
Like a legal pressure valve,
Exactly.
releasing that pent-up need for retribution
Mhm.
in a controlled manner.
Imagine a society where a single act of violence could easily spiral into an endless cycle of revenge killings.
Right.
Blood money serves as a mechanism
Okay.
to break that cycle
Break the cycle.
by providing a tangible form of restitution
Restitution?
that satisfies both the victim's family
Uh-huh.
and the broader community's need for justice.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Sunan al Tirmidhi gets into some pretty specific details
It does.
about how blood money works in practice. Right?
Absolutely. And it's these details that often surprise people.
Okay.
For instance, the amount of blood money
Mm-hmm.
isn't a fixed sum.
Okay.
It varies depending on a whole range of factors,
Such as?
like the severity of the injury, the intent behind the act, and
Oh.
even the social status of the victim.
Wait, social status plays a role.
It does.
That seems a bit
I know it can seem.
outdated,
Yeah, to put it mildly.
to put it mildly.
But remember,
Yeah.
we're talking about a legal system developed centuries ago in a very different social context.
Different times.
At the time, social hierarchy played a significant role in everyday life,
Right.
and this was reflected in the legal system as well.
So how did this play out in terms of blood money?
Well, for example,
Okay.
the blood money for killing a free man was higher
Higher.
than that for killing a slave.
Wow.
Similarly, the blood money for injuring a woman was generally lower than that for injuring a man.
That's pretty stark.
It is.
It really highlights those social inequalities
Yeah.
of the time.
Of the time.
But beyond social status,
Sure.
what are some other factors
Mhm.
that determine the amount of blood money owed?
The nature and severity of the injury
Okay.
are key considerations.
Key considerations.
Sunan al Tirmidhi provides incredibly detailed breakdowns
It does.
of the blood money owed for different types of injuries.
How specific are we talking?
We're talking specific injuries to specific body parts.
Okay.
For example, Hadith 1391 states that the blood money for a finger
A finger,
is 10 camels,
10 camels.
and this applies to each finger.
Each finger.
So if someone loses 2 fingers,
2 fingers.
that's 20 camels.
Okay.
3 fingers, 30 camels, and so on.
Okay, that's a lot of camels.
It is.
I can see how the system aimed for precision and proportionality
Yeah.
in addressing harm.
Yeah. It's about achieving a balance.
But what about cases
Yeah.
where the injury isn't so clear-cut?
Uh-huh.
Like, what if someone is permanently disfigured but not killed?
That's where the concept of arsh comes in.
Harsh.
Arsh refers to financial compensation for injuries that don't result in death,
Okay.
but cause permanent damage or impairment.
Damage or impairment.
Again, Sunan al Tirmidhi goes into great detail outlining the arsh owed.
Okay. For various types of injuries,
So, like,
from broken bones and lost teeth
Yeah.
to scars and disfigurements.
it sounds like Islamic law really tries to account for every possible scenario.
It really does try to cover all the bases.
But what happens if the injury is unintentional?
That's a great question.
Like, what if someone accidentally causes harm?
Yeah.
Is blood money still required?
And it highlights a key distinction
Okay.
in Islamic law
Okay.
between intentional and unintentional acts.
Okay.
In cases of accidental injury or death, the rules are different.
So if you trip and accidentally knock someone into a well,
Right.
you're not automatically on the hook for 100 camels.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hadith 1378 deals with a scenario where a man falls into a well and dies.
Okay.
The Hadith clarifies that the owner of the well is not required to pay blood money
Oh, interesting.
in this situation,
Well,
as it was an accident,
right.
and the well owner was not negligent.
That makes sense.
It would be pretty harsh to hold someone responsible for an accident
Right.
that they couldn't have prevented.
Right.
But it brings up another question.
Okay.
What about situations
Yeah.
where there is negligence involved?
Islamic law has a concept called kafara,
Kafara.
which refers to expiation for certain actions,
Right.
including those involving accidental harm or death.
So if someone's
So
negligent...
someone's negligence contributed to an accident,
It's okay.
they might be required to perform certain acts of expiation,
Acts of expiation.
like fasting, freeing a slave, or giving charity.
So it's not just a binary system
Right.
of guilty or not guilty.
It's much more nuanced than that.
There are nuances and gradations
Exactly.
of responsibility
Yeah.
based on intent and negligence.
Precisely.
And this reflects the Islamic emphasis on taking personal responsibility for one's actions
Mhm.
while also recognizing the role of circumstances and unintended consequences.
Exactly.
It sounds like a very nuanced system.
It is.
Trying to strike that balance
Yeah.
between holding people accountable
Yeah.
and recognizing the complexities of human action.
That's a good way to put it.
But what happens
Right.
if someone can't afford to pay the blood money
Another good question.
or the arsh owed?
Yeah.
Do they go to jail?
That's where the system demonstrates its compassion and flexibility.
Compassion and flexibility.
Islamic law recognizes that financial hardship
Okay.
can be a mitigating factor.
A mitigating factor.
Hadith 1307, for example,
Okay.
describes how the Prophet encouraged giving respite
Giving respite.
to those who are unable to pay their debts,
Okay.
including blood money.
So there's room for negotiation and accommodation
Absolutely.
based on individual circumstances.
And this is where the role of the victim's family becomes crucial.
Okay, how so?
They have the right to pardon the perpetrator,
The victim's family can pardon?
either in part.
So like,
quote, unquote,
wait, so the victim's family
Yeah.
can just forgive the debt entirely, even in cases of murder?
Yes.
Really?
In fact, this act of forgiveness, known as afu, is
Yeah.
highly regarded in Islam.
Highly regarded.
It's seen as a way to break the cycle of vengeance,
Okay.
promote healing,
All right.
and demonstrate the highest level of compassion and mercy.
That's remarkable.
It is.
It adds a whole other layer of complexity
Mhm.
to this system.
Yeah, it's not just about legal rulings.
Yeah.
It's about human emotions, religious beliefs, and personal choices,
Wow.
intertwining to shape the outcome.
That's a powerful idea.
It is.
Choosing forgiveness over revenge.
Yeah.
Even in the face of immense loss.
Mm,
It makes you realize justice can be both restorative
it can be both.
and reconciliatory.
Yeah.
It's about achieving a sense of balance,
Exactly.
not just punishment.
And this emphasis on balance and reconciliation is a recurring theme
Okay.
throughout Islamic law.
A recurring theme.
It's about finding ways to address harm,
Uh-huh.
uphold rights, and maintain order within the community, while also recognizing the importance of compassion, mercy, and forgiveness.
This has been a really insightful look
It has.
into the concept of blood money.
Yeah.
It's clear that there's a lot more to it
Here is.
than meets the eye.
We've only just begun to scratch the surface.
Wow.
There's so much more to explore in Sunan al Tirmidhi
Okay.
regarding blood money and its connection to broader principles of Islamic law.
Fascinating stuff. This deep dive into Islamic jurisprudence, specifically the concept of blood money,
Yeah,
is really challenging some of my preconceived notions
I can imagine.
about how justice systems work.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how these centuries-old legal principles
Yeah.
grapple with the nuances of human behavior,
Right.
intent, and the complexities of communal life.
What's striking about Islamic law,
Yeah?
as exemplified in Sunan al Tirmidhi,
Okay.
is how it seeks to address not just the outward act of a
Okay.
crime, but also the inner motivations
Like the
and circumstances surrounding it.
It's like it's trying to get to the heart of the matter,
Yeah.
not just impose a one-size-fits-all punishment.
Exactly.
And this nuanced approach seems to extend beyond the realm of physical harm
It does.
to other aspects of social interaction.
Absolutely.
Like what?
A prime example is the concept of gharar,
Gharar.
which roughly translates to uncertainty
Uncertain.
or risk in transactions.
Okay.
Islamic law places a strong emphasis
Okay.
on minimizing gharar.
Minimizing gharar.
particularly in financial dealings.
Okay.
Ensuring that all parties involved
Uh-huh.
have clear and transparent knowledge of the terms and conditions.
So it's not just about preventing outright fraud,
No, it goes beyond that.
but also about avoiding any ambiguity
Exactly.
or hidden risks that could lead to unfair outcomes.
Precisely.
It's like the Islamic legal system is saying, look, we want to ensure that all transactions are based on mutual trust and understanding.
Yeah.
No one should feel like they're being taken advantage of
Yeah.
or tricked into a deal
Right.
they don't fully comprehend.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It creates a level playing field
Right.
where everyone can participate
Yeah.
in economic activity with confidence.
I bet that was revolutionary for its time.
Do you have any examples
I do.
of how this principle of minimizing gharar
Yeah.
plays out in specific business practices?
Well, Sunan al Tirmidhi has a fascinating section
Okay.
on the ethics of buying and selling animals,
Okay.
particularly livestock like camels and sheep,
Okay.
which were essential to the economy of the time.
Essential back then.
Yeah, for instance, it explicitly forbids
Okay.
the practice of selling a pregnant animal
Oh,
without disclosing its condition to the buyer.
So it's about full transparency.
It is?
No hiding crucial information
Yeah,
that could impact the value of the transaction.
exactly.
Makes sense.
It also forbids the practice of selling an animal
Uh-huh.
that's known to be sick or defective
Oh.
without informing the buyer of its condition.
So it's, again, just honesty and transparency.
Yeah, it's about ensuring that both the buyer and the seller
Yeah.
have equal access to information
Right.
so they can make informed decisions.
Informed decisions.
No shady backroom deals
Yeah.
or taking advantage of someone's lack of knowledge.
Right.
I bet that was revolutionary for its time.
I bet.
Yeah. And this commitment to fairness and transparency
Right.
extends beyond just buying and selling.
Beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
like-
also applies to other forms of financial transactions,
Cool.
like loans and investments.
Okay.
Islamic law strongly discourages practices like usury,
Usury.
where excessive interest is charged on loans,
Okay.
essentially trapping people in cycles of debt.
So there's a social conscience embedded within these financial principles.
There is.
It's not just about maximizing profit,
Right.
but about ensuring that economic activity
Yeah,
benefits the entire community.
exactly.
This resonates with some modern-day ethical investing movement
It does.
that prioritize social impact alongside financial returns.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. There
Mhm.
are definitely parallels there.
There are.
And this focus on ethical conduct extends beyond the realm of finance.
Okay.
Sunan al Tirmidhi has entire sections
It does.
dedicated to the etiquette of social interactions,
Ah.
emphasizing the importance of honesty, trustworthiness,
Okay.
and respect in all aspects of life.
I'm particularly intrigued by the hadiths that deal with interacting with people from other faiths.
Okay?
Given the context of a time with different religious communities living in close proximity,
Yeah.
how did Islamic law navigate those relationships?
It's an area that requires a nuanced understanding.
Okay.
Some hadiths, like number 1602,
1602.
instruct Muslims not to initiate greetings
Oh.
with Jews and Christians,
Okay.
but to respond if they are greeted first.
That seems a bit counterintuitive.
It does on the surface.
Wouldn't initiating a greeting
Yeah.
be a gesture of goodwill and neighborliness?
It's a complex issue.
Yeah. And there are different interpretations of this hadith.
Different interpretations.
Some scholars suggest that it was a specific instruction
Okay.
for a particular time and context,
Okay.
perhaps related to political tensions or ongoing conflicts.
Interesting.
Others interpret it as a general guideline
Okay.
to maintain a certain level of social distance
Social distance.
between Muslims and those of other faiths.
Okay.
Not out of disrespect,
Okay.
but as a way to preserve a distinct Islamic identity.
So it's about navigating the complexities of interfaith relations
It is.
in a way that upholds both respect for others
Right.
and adherence to one's own religious principles.
Exactly.
That's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Many societies still grapple with today.
Indeed. And it's important to note
Okay.
that Islamic law also emphasizes the importance
Okay.
of treating people of other faiths justly and fairly.
Okay.
There's a strong emphasis on honoring agreements, upholding contracts.
And avoiding any form of deception or exploitation
Right.
in dealings with people of all backgrounds.
It's that sense of fairness and justice.
It is.
Seems to be a universal principle
Right.
that transcends religious boundaries.
Absolutely. And it's this commitment to justice
Okay.
that forms the foundation of another concept that's often misunderstood and misrepresented.
Okay, what's that?
Jihad.
Oh, yes. Jihad.
A word that's often loaded with baggage.
It is.
And unfortunately associated primarily with violence and warfare.
Primarily with violence.
Yeah, it's crucial to understand that the word jihad literally means to struggle or to strive.
To struggle, to strive.
It's a much broader concept than just physical fighting.
Okay.
In fact, the greatest jihad,
The greatest jihad.
as described in Islamic teachings, is the struggle against one's own desires and temptations.
So it's an internal battle.
It is an internal battle.
Against those inner demons we all face.
Exactly.
The temptation
Yeah.
that pull us away from our better selves.
Right.
That's a concept that resonates with people of all faiths.
It does.
And even those who don't subscribe to any particular religion.
It's a universal struggle.
Yeah.
It's about that constant effort to improve ourselves.
Could improve ourselves.
To resist those urges that lead us astray.
That's right.
And to make choices that align with our higher values.
Our higher values.
But jihad also encompasses the idea of striving for justice and righteousness in the external world.
And that's where the concept of fighting in a war comes in.
Yes, but even then there are strict rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement.
In Islamic law.
Strict rules of engagement.
It's not about indiscriminate violence or aggression. In fact, Sunan al Tirmidhi has a hadith, number 1550, that states that the punishment for theft, which is the amputation of the hand, is not carried out during battles.
That's surprising.
It is. It's interesting.
Why would such a severe punishment
be
suspended during wartime?
Some scholars suggest it was out of concern.
Out of concern for what?
That the person whose hand was amputated might join the enemy out of anger or resentment.
Interesting.
Thereby increasing the bloodshed and prolonging the conflict.
Prolonging the conflict.
Yeah, it highlights the Islamic emphasis on minimizing harm.
Minimizing.
Even in the midst of battle.
And
seeking reconciliation whenever possible.
It's a reminder that even in war, there are limits.
Right.
And the ultimate goal should be to restore peace and justice.
Exactly.
Not to inflict unnecessary suffering.
This challenges the notion that jihad is simply a license for violence.
It does challenge that notion.
And Sunan al Tirmidhi also highlights the virtues of those who participate in jihad for the sake of God. There are numerous hadiths that describe the rewards awaiting those who fight to defend Islam and protect the oppressed.
So like a higher calling.
It is a higher calling.
It's about selflessness, courage, and a willingness to stand up for what's right, even at great personal risk.
It's about answering a higher calling.
A moral imperative.
Exactly.
To protect the vulnerable and fight against injustice.
And these hadiths often emphasize the importance of having the right intentions.
The right intentions.
When engaging in jihad. It's not about personal gain or glory, but about serving God and upholding his values.
Serving God.
It's about sacrificing one's comfort and safety for a higher purpose, for the sake of something greater than oneself.
So there's this profound sense of duty and purpose.
There is.
That drives those who engage in jihad.
Right.
A deep-seated belief that they are fighting for a just cause.
Exactly.
A cause that transcends their own individual needs and desires.
Precisely. And it's about doing so with courage. Discipline. And a steadfast commitment to justice and righteousness.
Justice and righteousness.
This brings us to another important topic addressed in Sunan al Tirmidhi.
Okay, what's that?
The guidelines on personal conduct and appearance.
It's interesting how these teachings cover such a wide spectrum of human experience.
They do.
From the grand concepts of justice and war.
Right.
To the seemingly mundane details of everyday life.
It reflects the holistic nature of Islamic guidance, seeking to provide a framework for living a righteous life in all its aspects.
In all its aspects.
So naturally, it would address matters of personal appearance and conduct, including clothing and grooming.
So what are some of the guidelines on clothing and grooming?
There's a hadith number 1725.
1725.
Where the Prophet prohibits men from wearing silk.
Prohibits men from wearing silk.
And garments dyed with usfur.
Usfur.
Which is a particular type of dye.
That's interesting.
It is.
Any insights into why silk and this specific dye were singled out?
There are different interpretations of this hadith.
Some scholars view it as a prohibition.
Like prohibition?
Against men wearing clothing considered overly luxurious or extravagant.
Luxurious?
A way of promoting humility and simplicity in attire.
Promoting humility?
Yeah. Others see it as a way of distinguishing men's clothing from women's.
Okay.
Maintaining a clear distinction between genders in terms of dress.
So it's about maintaining a certain level of modesty and simplicity.
It is.
In men's attire.
Right.
Avoiding ostentation and blurring gender lines through clothing.
Exactly.
Does it also touch on personal grooming practices?
It does. Absolutely.
Like what?
Sunan al Tirmidhi contains hadiths.
Okay.
About the importance of keeping one's hair and beard clean and well-groomed.
Hair and beard.
Yeah. There's also mention of using perfume.
Okay.
And taking care of one's teeth.
So personal hygiene and self-care are considered important aspects of Islamic practice.
It's all part of honoring the body that God has given us.
Honoring the body and presenting ourselves in a way that is pleasing to him.
This attention to detail, from clothing and grooming to financial transactions, and even warfare, highlights the comprehensive nature of these teachings.
It's about cultivating a sense of awareness and intentionality in every aspect of life.
In every aspect of life.
And speaking of intentionality, there's one more area we haven't touched upon yet.
Okay, let's hear it.
Islamic dietary laws. A topic that, like blood money, might seem straightforward. But actually reveals a lot about Islamic values and worldview.
Okay. I'm ready to dive in.
It's a fascinating journey that reveals a deep concern for purity ethical consumption.
Purity ethical consumption.
And a profound sense of gratitude for God's blessings.
Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. I have to admit, I'm really looking forward to exploring this next dimension of Islamic law. It's fascinating to think about how even something as seemingly simple as food and drink can become a subject of deep theological and legal consideration.
You hit the nail on the head. Islamic dietary laws, often referred to as halal, offer a window into the Islamic worldview. Where even the act of eating and drinking is seen as an opportunity to connect with the divine and live in accordance with God's will.
So let's dive into the details.
All right.
What are some of the key principles underlying halal dietary laws?
Well, one of the foundational principles is the concept of purity. Both physical and spiritual. This emphasis on purity manifests in a number of ways. From the types of animals that are permissible to eat to the methods of slaughtering and preparing food.
So it's not just about avoiding certain foods.
No.
But also about ensuring that the entire process from sourcing to consumption is conducted in a way that aligns with Islamic values.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of awareness and intentionality in every aspect of our interaction with food. Now, when it comes to permissible animals, there's a clear distinction between those that are considered halal, meaning lawful or permitted, and those that are haram, meaning forbidden.
And pork is the most well-known example of a haram food, right?
Yes. The prohibition of pork is explicitly mentioned in the Quran.
It is.
And it's a dietary rule that most Muslims adhere to strictly.
Strictly.
While the Quran doesn't explicitly explain the reasons behind this prohibition, many scholars have offered interpretations.
I'm curious to hear some of those interpretations.
Okay.
What are some of the reasons scholars have put forth for the prohibition of pork?
Some interpretations focus on the potential health risks associated with consuming pork, particularly in the context of the time and region where these dietary laws originated. Others highlight the fact that pigs are often scavengers. Their diet might include things considered unclean in Islam, and this impurity could potentially transfer to those who consume them.
So it's not just an arbitrary rule.
No, it's not arbitrary.
There are underlying reasons grounded in concerns about hygiene, health, and maintaining a certain level of spiritual purity.
Precisely. And this emphasis on purity and cleanliness extends to other aspects of Islamic dietary laws as well.
Like what?
For instance, Islamic law prescribes a specific method of slaughtering animals known as zabiha.
Zabiha.
Have you heard of that?
I have heard of zabiha.
Yeah.
Can you explain what makes this method of slaughter unique?
Sure.
And how it aligns with Islamic principles?
The Zabiha method involves a swift cut to the jugular vein of the animal.
Jugular vein.
While reciting the name of God, a practice known as tasmiyah.
Tasmiyah.
This method is considered to be the most humane way of slaughtering an animal.
The most humane way.
Minimizing its suffering.
Okay.
And ensuring that the blood is drained from the carcass.
Okay.
Which is seen as essential for purity.
So there's a deep concern for animal welfare.
There is.
Woven into these dietary practices.
Yeah.
It's about treating animals with respect and minimizing their pain.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the process of preparing them for consumption.
Exactly. It's a recognition of the sanctity of all life.
Okay.
And an acknowledgement that even animals deserve to be treated.
Animals deserve.
With compassion and dignity.
Compassion and dignity.
And this sense of mindfulness extends to other aspects of eating and drinking as well.
Do you have any examples of how Islamic teachings encourage mindfulness and intentionality?
I do.
Even in the simple act of consuming food and drink?
Well, there's a fascinating hadith number 1876.
1876.
That deals with nabid.
Nabid.
A drink made from dates, raisins, honey, or grains soaked in water.
That sounds pretty harmless.
It does.
What's the issue with nabid?
Nabid, if left to ferment, can become an intoxicant, which is strictly forbidden in Islam.
Forbidden.
The hadith highlights the importance of avoiding even the potential for intoxication.
Potential.
It prohibits storing nabid in containers previously used for wine.
Wow.
As even the residue could trigger fermentation and lead to the drink becoming haram.
That's a level of precaution I wouldn't have thought of.
It
really shows the emphasis on proactively avoiding anything that could lead to a transgression.
Yeah.
Even if it's not technically forbidden in its current state.
It's about staying vigilant.
Vigilant.
And guarding against even the possibility of slipping into something harmful.
Harmful.
Or detrimental to one's spiritual well-being.
This conversation has really opened my eyes to the depth and nuance of Islamic dietary laws.
It's so much more than just a list of do's and don'ts.
Right.
It's about approaching food and drink with intentionality, mindfulness, and a deep sense of gratitude for the blessings that God has provided.
And it's about recognizing that even seemingly mundane acts, like eating and drinking, can be opportunities to connect with the divine, to purify our hearts and minds, and to live in accordance with God's will.
Exactly.
Well, I think this wraps up our deep dives into the fascinating world of Islamic jurisprudence as illuminated by Sunan al Tirmidhi, Volume 3.
It does.
We've covered a lot of ground.
A lot of ground.
From the concept of blood money and its intricate system of compensation and forgiveness.
We have.
To the principles of ethical conduct in business and social interactions. And finally, to the mindful and intentional approach to food and drink, embodied in halal dietary laws.
It's been an incredible journey.
It has.
Exploring these ancient teachings. And discovering the profound wisdom and timeless relevance they hold.
Absolutely.
For navigating the complexities of human existence.
I have to say, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
I can imagine.
It's challenged some of my assumptions.
It's good to challenge assumptions.
And deepened my understanding of Islamic law, its underlying values. And its enduring relevance in today's world.
And that's the beauty of engaging with these texts.
The beauty.
They invite us to question, to reflect.
And question and reflect.
And to discover new perspectives that can enrich our understanding. Of ourselves, our communities, and the world around us.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Into the heart of Islamic jurisprudence.
My pleasure.
We encourage you to continue exploring these topics. To delve deeper into the sources. And to engage in thoughtful discussions about the application of these teachings in our contemporary context.
Absolutely.
Until next time, may peace be upon you.